All right, good afternoon. And today I'm delighted to have Dr. Christopher DeCock here. He is a child neurologist at Essentia and also the physician chair of the ethics committee there. Welcome,
Thank
Dr.
you,
Chris.
Father.
How's it going today?
Very good.
Now we're talking today a little bit about the important topic of brain death. This is a huge issue in bioethics, and there's some things that are on the horizon in civil society and the public square that you've been wanting to bring some attention to. So tell me a little bit about what's happening with brain death.
All right. Well, as you know, Father, brain death has been, part of the public, conscience for about 40 years, ever since the 1981 Uniform Determination of Death Act was proposed by the Uniform Law Commission and then promulgated and accepted by all 50 states in one form or another.
So tell me, all 50 states accept the definition of death as what? What's the current, objective definition of death legally?
Sure. So legally, it's if you have irreversible cardio or respiratory death, or I should say ceasing of function, and so that's your cardiopulmonary death, or if you have complete and irreversible loss of all functions of the brain, including the brainstem, so that would be brain death.
And that's based on pretty solid medical evidence and studies and everything else. Yep. It aligns pretty closely with what doctors consider to be death.
Well, I wish it did align with what doctors consider to be death. There's unfortunately a misunderstanding about death legally and medically. People feel that there's the death of the person and the death of the body.
So we've been working with this definition of death in the legal system since 1981. Has this definition served us well?
Oh, yes, because first of all, it represents an objective reality of death, and that's why so many people accepted it, because if whole brain does exist, it exists as... if brain death exists, it exists as a whole brain formulation, and it's allowed, and it was promoted by John Paul II, but it is allowed for the ethical procurement of organs from people that are truly brain dead.
So it's enabled the generosity of organ donation to happen, but within the ethical framework that respects everyone's human dignity.
Absolutely.
So who wants to change this definition?
Well,
is it a particular state? Is it the federal government? Or what's the entity that's trying to change this?
Well, I hate to say it, but it's kind of the culture of death.
Sure.
So there are a lot of secular bioethicists who have been trying to change the definition of death. Some of those in support of this have also tried to get rid of the dead donor rule, which implies that you need to be dead in order to donate your organs. And so there's been debate on this issue for a long time. And so what they're seeking to do is use the current clinical criteria for the determination of brain death, which are inadequate to the task because they don't actually test for whole brain death, and they're trying to legalize that and move away from a true whole brain death to a partial whole brain death, to move from an objective reality of death to a subjective one.
So what's this culture of death? What instruments is it using to kind of advance this? Is it is this happening just through journals of philosophy and bioethics, or is it sort of gaining some traction in jurisprudence and legal theory?
Well, it's been gaining traction, and I'll be honest, it's been misunderstood for a long time, because in the law, they've oftentimes stated that there's the death of the person and the death of the body is two separate things. I mean, look at Terry Schiavo. That's exactly what happened.
Sure.
And so what's being pushed forward here is basically you're dead enough to donate your organs, and we're going to call it a legal fiction so that legally you're dead. So patients like Jahai McNath, who lived for 4 years after her diagnosis of brain death, or mothers that are gestating pregnancies. In fact, there was a case where they gestated a pregnancy for 128 days before they delivered the babies. Now they're legally dead and medically dead.
So what are you trying to do to raise awareness? I hear you have a big kind of event coming up. This is all very fascinating and an important topic, but how can we learn more about this?
So on May 4th, over at the Pastoral Center, we're having an event at 6 p.m. to discuss sort of the Uniform Law Commission and the Uniform Determination of Death Act, as well as the revision that's being proposed. And the reason we're doing this now is because come July, the committee as a whole, this group of lawyers from around the country, is going to vote on whether or not to accept this new proposed definition of death.
And what group are they a part of at this big vote?
So this is the Uniform Law Commission. So there are representatives appointed by every state that are going to decide whether or not to keep the current definition of brain death, which is whole brain death, or accept this subjective, dead enough definition of brain death.
Sure, and you're going to talk more about this on May 4th, Thursday night at 6 p.m. at the Pastoral Center.
Correct.
Just right across the street here from St. Anne and Joachim.
Absolutely.
What are going to be your main topics you're going to cover on that Thursday night?
Sure. So first of all, we're going to talk about sort of what the law is and why that's correct. And then we're going to talk about what the proposal is and why that's incorrect. We're going to talk about what you can do about it. Because, I mean, the real problem is we're decreasing prudential certitude in our determination of death. And that's another thing that John Paul II talked about in 2000. Organ donation is a great gift, but only if you have prudential certitude that the patient is dead. Well, currently we don't have prudential certitude. So what we actually need for prudential certitude is not to change the definition of death to align with inadequate clinical criteria, but we need to improve our testing. And what I would like to see is that we would actually test for hypothalamic function.
Excellent. Well, this is all fascinating and intriguing. And I admire your vigilance in sort of bringing this important topic up. Now, we could talk all day, I'm sure, right?
Absolutely.
This is a fascinating topic and very important to talk about. But you have an event coming up where you're going to present more on this, right?
Correct. So on May 4th, over at the Pastoral Center, we're going to be having an event at 6 p.m. If you want to read about it, there's an article that I worked on with Charlie Camosi in the New Earth on page 30.
Excellent.
And then next month, we'll have an article by Father Tad on this same issue.
All right, so Thursday,
May 4th.
Thursday, May 4th at 6 p.m. over at the Pastoral Center, just right across the street here from us at St. Anne and Joachim.
Correct.
And we're talking today on April 15th.
At tax day.
Isn't that something?
It is, and especially since if this proposal goes through and is accepted by the committee at large in July, there will only be one more absolute in life as opposed to two. Because I was always told that there were two absolutes in life, death and taxes. If this goes through, it's just taxes.
We wouldn't want that, would we?
No, we would not.
All right. So join Dr. Chris on Thursday, May 4th to learn more about this important topic of brain death. Peace be with you and God bless.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you.